Kinda actually. If you're using Amazon Images the same way I'm using Amazon Images here, the first time that you come to the screen, what's going to actually greet you is a whole bunch of blank screens. And it took me a long time to try to figure out what was going on here. So the issue here was that there's kind of a lot of times with this XML components, you run into this security exception because Adobe kind of changed the rules of Flash security in Flash 9. And then before Flash 9, everything that was built didn't take into account the security, so you would have a lot of components out there that would use this XML model. But then when you try to deploy it, they'll run into these issues. So what was going on here was, if I look at my actual image, I can see that the path of my image is this exe images amazon.com, which is the static images. Now there's a file here called crossdomain.xml that is going to show me what are the sites that Amazon would allow you to do to kind of access these images. Now if you look at this cross-domain file, it says, hey, if you're a Target site, welcome in. If you're an Amazon site, welcome in. But if you're anything else, you're not welcome. Now, I don't know how gray area what I'm about to do next is. I do want to say that if you look at the Tour de Flex component, um, they actually do have examples in here that show you Amazon, and it shows you kind of it shows you how to integrate into Amazon.com, and and then in this API you are able to do a search here that does show all the images. So what's happening here is, if you don't do anything to the image, you're able to look at the image and you're able to play with the image. However, in this component, I'm pretty sure that what's happening is that Cool Iris comes in and says, load this image and then do something else. Load the bitmap data of this image, do something else that is a forbidden permission. And I'm pretty sure that that's actually done just for the background on the bottom here. So in order to create this reflection, it probably needs to access the bitmap data here. And because of the broken Flash security model, what ends up happening is this image cannot be accessed. And so now all of a sudden, instead of showing you the image, it shows you nothing. Long-winded, but if you go to the Tour de Flex, you can see that you can do a search for example, books in Flex, and it'll show you all the images here, despite the fact that this is not in the authenticated domain, because it doesn't do anything to the images. Once you start trying to do anything with the images, and I'm pretty sure that it's this reflection down here, you'll see nothing. So how do we fix it? If you go back to my book controller code, you will see that whenever I reference an image, I actually pass it into this book proxy object. Now, if I was to build this extensively afterwards, what I would have done is I would have actually moved this proxy service out into an image. But all this book proxy server does is it takes an Amazon image and then it uses the Google Images API to say, read this image as an image, so take this image in, and then just dump it back out. Just get this image and dump it back out. But the difference here though is that because my URL now is in my local domain, it gets rid of this Flash security error. So that's kind of the long-winded way about how in a lot of this Flash components you run into this error that says, hey, wait a second, you're not in the right domain, I'm not going to allow you to access this file, despite the fact that you can read the file, you can access the file. The Flash security model just won't let you look at the insides of this file. So using Grails, we're able to overcome that limitation. You'll usually find that That error would happen if you try to read an XML file that is in one domain and your flash file is located in the other domain. Or in this case, what was happening was all my images were not being allowed to have this bitmap data being processed. So now when I come back to my site, everything is working like a dream.